AI systems is, I would say, more important first, right? Not that you don't need a seatbelt. Structured versus unstructured. David, you mentioned that. I thought that was a very good point. Most of the world's information is unstructured or structured in different ways. And software is very slow because to put everything in specific data structures takes a long time, right? If you think of the way the laws are written, they're not written in parametric fields. They're written in clauses that we understand and interpret and argue. And that's what the generative AI models do. So that's why it's more productive than software 1.0. So yeah, that's it. I'm going to go into my presentation. Okay, so there's a lot of scare mongering about AI. We're going to lose jobs, and let's all smash balloons and all that. And what we're seeing is that if you look at this, right, from the 1960s, the handheld calculator to the PC age to Windows 95, the internet bubble, cloud computing, big data, and generative AI, what we've seen is a steady increase of labor participation. And basically, as you invent technologies, people actually have more work to do. They end up with less work. The other one there you can see, so labor participation rates on aggregate have gone up, but they haven't all gone up for male versus female. And there's, obviously, over the last 50 years, we had a lot of more participation and gender equality in the workplace. And there's also other things that affect the labor participation rate or unemployment. The birth rate is a very big part of that, and also social security. You can see that I didn't highlight that one, but the ABS statement, they're basically saying if you have more social security, less people want to work. I'm not going to make any judgments of that. The ABS says that. So what we're trying to say is the technology the thing that's going to make people have mass unemployment? Probably not the biggest factor. And the other thing is because now we'll probably hit peak population around 2080, so people, and we already have we have a negative growth rate of population in Australia if you take out immigration, right? So we need people. So the fact that, if you add AI and you get rid of people, that's probably not the winning formula. The people that know your business are the most valuable thing. So you need to think about how do you give people a calculator to use to make them more productive in their work because they know your business. I think that's the key lesson there. David, you talked a little bit about bubbles. There is a difference between industrial bubbles and financial bubbles. Financial bubbles are very destructive in economic value, so the GFC basically wiped out a lot of value. Whereas industrial bubbles, this over-investment in technical infrastructure, in research, the pharma bubble, the internet bubble resulted in new drugs, fiber optic cables everywhere, which basically was used eventually. Short-term pain, but society generally benefits after that. So I think we should paint an optimistic view about AI technology in general. We talked about a few things. We talked about trust. We talked about agents, autonomy, and agency. And there's always been this traditional divide about transactional systems that are deterministic. FAIC covered that, and the analytical systems that are probabilistic or stochastic in nature. You can see that I think one of these prison sentencing one, if you scan that QR code, there was a bit of a lawsuit about that around 2016, right? It did things, it freed up a lot of people. Judges didn't have to go and study a lot of different things, but it also put a lot of wrong people or bias in sentencing. And you've got down this like very, very high trust technologies, like blockchain is the ultimate trust technology, but we're yet to try to figure out what we can do with it. Doesn't really do a lot. And now basically what we're saying is, well, with AI being more autonomous and more reliable in certain aspects, for example, computer vision 10 years ago, natural language processing 10 years ago compared to now, it is better. It is more accurate. It's not like the most accurate thing, but it is better. So what we're seeing is a pushing up of this curve of autonomy versus trust. And that's what creates new economic opportunities. So as we keep pushing that up, new possibilities are going to emerge. And okay, in their beta, I've got ground truth and airplanes and things like that. So airplane autopilots are very easy because people aren't in the air. So where you don't need to interact, you're going to be able to automate very quickly. Where people are, you're going to do so less quickly. And the reason is because this is the alignment problem, right? It's people that can't make up their mind. It's not machines. The machine will always do what you want it to do, right? And it's all about the law of averages, right? We want the machine to do what most people want. But we also want it to be fair, right? So fairness is like this. Everyone agrees that fairness is a universal value, but everyone has a different perception of what fairness is. And that's why AI is hard today. This Darren Asimoglu, which we had covered before, so listen to this. Where's the sound? Sound. It's black. This business has become that's good. But the evidence as far as I is quite clear. No business has become jewel of their industry by just posting.
All good business leaders are looking for that next big idea, that next innovation, that.
There we go.
But the evidence, as far as I read, is quite clear. No business has become, the jewel of their industry by just cost cutting.
All good business leaders are looking for that next big idea, that next innovation that can, turn them into one of these stars of their industry. In the meantime, right now is when they are putting investments into AI, and they are starting to look for a return on that investment. What metrics do you think they should be paying attention to know whether those investments are really paying off?
Well, I'm not going to be able to provide a simple metric for you, but let me give you my perspective. The reason why I wrote the paper that you started with is precisely because I'm worried about those investments. I think most business executives, not all, but most business executives are investing in AI blindly. They are doing so without understanding how AI can be synergistically deployed with their workforce. And they're doing so because they're under tremendous pressure, because every day they hear from management consultants, from the newspapers, from podcasts, that your competitors are investing big time in AI, and if you're not, you're falling behind. That's not the way to create a successful business. You never create a successful business because you think your competitors are investing and you should do it not to fall behind. And I think the recipe that I would suggest is start by thinking about where it is that you can make a big difference in terms of the new things that you do. I think for many financial industries, it's quite clear. New financial services are badly needed. I think if you are producing other services, health services, education services, I think the complete overhaul of these things is necessary. And that's not going to happen just by buying more cloud services from Amazon or just using some generative AI tools easily. It's going to happen by identifying, with the help of your most skilled employees, identifying where these new services can be introduced, what the demand for them is, and how that can be made possible. And AI would then be a great tool to augment the capabilities of your workforce and yourself in doing that.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So I just wanted to pick out a few things. I saw in Stefan's presentation the skills, and AWS was on the bottom of that coincidentally, and basically saying cloud. isn't going to be the way of the future, it seems. No company ever became the jewel of the industry by cost cutting. So that's really, really key, because we're in the age of an uncertain age of doing new things, right? And so most of my talk really today is about doing new things. So yeah, if you look at this, this window here, we've got on one side invention, right? Finding out new things, novel things, versus scaling that, scale and efficiency, right? You've got two things. You're not going to be a winner by just making things really, really at scale, right? And that's kind of things like outsourcing to low-cost, labor countries. You can do that for a while, but eventually somebody's going to invent something that's going to completely erode that. I mean, that might last 10, 15, 20 years, but eventually that's not very, very sustainable. So tech startups, are always an example of doing very new things. And you've got the factories on the bottom right-hand corner, and you've got this like monopoly power, what we call the stars, the ecosystem drivers on the top right. So they're very innovative, but they need to do that continuously at very large scale, right? And you can see the difference between, say, NVIDIA and Intel, right? Intel is very innovative and it's very big, right? But that still got knocked off. So this thing is almost like once you invent something, it's no longer novel. Then you're moving into the scaling game, but you need to come back and reinvent the next thing, and that goes on and on and on again. And what that, so I'll give you another example. So we've got coding, and you can go two paths, right? Software engineering outsourcing, we did a lot of that over to India, or now basically those businesses, and you can see TCS, Infosys, the graduate numbers are falling from 40,000 to like less than 10,000 this year, right? So eventually somebody's going to figure out some disruptive technology to wipe out your business model if you don't have a moat. Another example here is financial advice, right? We all know there's those 25,000 financial advisors 8 to 10 years ago. Now there's 15,000. So every financial advisor needs to double the number of clients. And we can see a lot of people go out and get overseas paraplanners, or other people are trying to build these kind of bionic advice models. And we've got people in the room that have been pioneering that, and then fully digital after that. So you can go basically a number of different paths. And you see some examples there, the guys that are really, really kind of the leaders, the Magnificent Seven kind of companies, they're continuously innovating at scale. And the movement kind of looks like that, right? You start off basic, you innovate. If you start off basic to get a bit of cash, right, to support you as a company, and then you build new tech, you scale that new tech, and you go for the innovations flywheel. And you can see, we heard a lot of terms like stars, omni-channel modular producer. There's a lot of other frameworks that you can work with this, right? On the left-hand side there, you've got the Digital Business Transformation Pathways by MIT. And that's basically saying supply and modular producer, be the best of what you've got, which is really about scale. And the top one is about experience. And then the combination of the two. And you've got BCG's growth share matrix, where you've got these, the stars of the Magnificent Seven, the cash cows of those established businesses with high barriers of entry, right? So I said banking is probably one of them. And you've got the question mark, which are the fintech, the challenges to that. And then the pets, which used to be called dogs. They're terrible companies, but they're not called dogs anymore. I'll tell you a big time 0 to 1 story, right? When Tesla, everyone will know the story. When Tesla came out, it built a Roadster. That was before electric cars were really ever a thing. No one believed it could be a thing. It was a very expensive car, but really it proved that this thing could drive and people would want it. Then they built a factory, and the factory itself was as innovative as the product. They used a gigapress, they did all this crazy stuff to scale the product, and they really wanted to sell you an affordable, high-tech, mass-market product, right? And they got there. And they're the leaders, and they were worth more than every other car on the market, except now BYD outsell them kind of more than 2 to 1. So it shows that even if you were the first there, you could get knocked off quite easily. Except now, with AI being the multiplier, you can see that they're going to make the next technical leap, right? Full self-driving is being rolled out, and driverless or robo-taxis are now operating in several places in the world, and the cost is around $1 per mile because they still have a driver to hold the steering wheel, and versus Uber's $1.50 to $2 a mile, and it's projected to be 20 cents to 40 cents when it's fully rolled out. Right, so Tesla is going to wipe out Uber's business model. Uber had an innovation of business model, but it didn't have any really underlying technical innovation. So it's got no moat. So today's AI revenue is around $250 billion US. So if you take all the AI revenue generated today, versus we heard those factors of gross value add in the economy, right? The global economy is like $100 trillion. You're going to get like from 1.7 to let's say 5% as the estimated gross value add of AI. So what that means is 250 to that is at least a 10x ROI for a successful AI project. If you use those macro factors, that's what you should be going for. And the evidence shows, right? I mean, your example of 8,000 hours to 2,000 hours to 80 hours. We did work with other European banks in our company. There was some document processing work for some ongoing customer due diligence, and they had to go and pull out all the PDFs and the Excel files, put it all together, and hit a bureau call. And there were 10 people, 2 years on a rotating basis, and it turned into like 2 people, 2 months. So it's like 80 to 90% efficiency. This was pre-ChatGPT days. So the benefits are absolutely there. And in terms of the disruption, I think most people are familiar with this in that, because it's all software today. So the disruption is going to come in those professional, what we call white collar jobs, all of our jobs. And then when robots come in there, bipedal robots are eventually coming, they'll be able to screw a tap or change the light bulb for us. So that's kind of the it's got to wash through every industry in that way, and we've heard that a number of times. So with AI, we are in a new age we are in an age of doing new things and not tweaking what's there, right? And it's really, you know there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of uncertainty, right? And just like Christopher Columbus, the world was flat, and if you went too far, you'll sail off the end, right? Just like, harnessing the power of the atom, it is very dangerous, yet we do it. And I call them rebels, dreamers, and madmen. Go out and do these things, and somebody's going to do it, and we all eventually benefit. So it's really whether you want to go first or not. I think that's the mindset. But eventually, we're going to find out what's on the other side. We all will, right? Eric Schmidt. So to get to the other side, right? To get to that gross value add, what we need is lots more software at the end of the day. He talks about content. Eric Schmidt from Google, but it's interesting what he has to say.
One, which to me is the most profound, to you. And the third one, which to me is the most profound, which is already beginning to happen, is text to action. And what that is write me a piece of software to do something, right? You just say it. Now, can you imagine having programmers that actually do what you say you want, and it does it 24 hours a day? And strangely, these systems are good at writing code such as language like Python.
So software, that writes itself, right? That's what we're going to. I'm going to show you an example now, and to put that all in perspective, stop sharing. And I've got two engineers on our team over there, Ian and Anna, and what you're seeing here is two vibe code apps, right? And what we're saying is to give your staff that superpower, the multiplier effect, right? Give them the calculator, the computer. We're going to move from, for example, Excel to prompt engineering, right? You can do whatever you want. So the financial analyst will be able to do all of the PhD level analysis, going forward, right? So Ade, why don't you just talk us through the application that you've got and tell us how long and what it took to build it?
Sure, thanks. Yeah, sure, thanks, Alan. So we were discussing just 3 days ago, like what we're gonna do demo for this particular part of the presentation. And I just said it and like, yeah, sure, I have made a stock prediction app involving NLP and everything. Yeah, so yeah, sure, why not? So I was like, yeah, sure, go for it. It took me a month, like when I was doing my bachelor's, and it's not that long ago. And for this particular app, it took me less than 3 hours. So I was like so impressed with this. And as Stefan talked about, this is the new Gemini Pro that Google released. And I will just show you what I wrote and what it gave. So all of the demo that you saw are just plain English. Of course, it has a little bit of technical knowledge so that language model knows what it's like it has to give, but still it's just regular English. And I'll tell you my secret if you don't want. This prompt is from ChatGPT. So I just I just tell him, hey mate, can you please give me a prompt and this and that, and make sure it's as detailed as possible. I want this app to be fully developed. I want it to be like Dockerized and everything. So all the files that you can see, these are just built by the LLM. I have not even wrote. Actually, I haven't even looked like what this file contains. I just accept, and then it has been doing everything on its own. So it's really scary and really interesting at the same time.
Show us the app.
Oh yeah, sure. So as I was sharing earlier, so it contains all the previous price predictions. It'll say like after 30 days, the stock will be around this. And it really has all the news articles as well. It does news sentiment analysis. We can just straight away go open and look around we can just ingest different APIs, and it can be done by a regular non-coder. We don't require anything like earlier.
Real-time prices and everything.
Real-time prices, actually, yeah. So must be 15 minutes before, because of course we are using the free version. But yeah, if you have the paid version, you can just have the real-time prices of it.
Go to the second.
So you're getting ChatGPT to craft the prompt that you put into Gemini, is that?
Exactly.
So
Now you know the secret.
Yeah, I just use voice now, voice to text.
Yep,
I'll talk to ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, stand in my office on a complete rant about what I want.
Yeah.
Just going on a diatribe for like 5 minutes, and then get ChatGPT to craft it into a meaningful prompt. It's really well. If for some reason these LLMs can handle a diatribe where you might repeat yourself or contradict yourself several times, after talking for 10 minutes, like if I had an actual software engineer in the room or a developer, they wouldn't want to work with me anymore.
Exactly.
It's interesting how you've gone between the two models. So
so actually, we discuss around.
What about deployment? How far from deployment do you?
We'll cover that in a moment. I'll cover that.
Sorry, Alan.
So quickly jump on. So we're running very short on time, but Ian, just show us your application.
Yeah. Okay, let me share my screen. Yeah, so when we come to vibe coding, we can really think of like build anything you want. So anything that bothers you in your everyday life or any redundant task you want to solve, you can just vibe code it. So in my example, I was just thinking, where the hell is my money going every month? So yeah, I got this NZ transaction like for the past 120 days, and I really just want to know where my money is going. So I vibe coded app to categorize all my money, all my transactions. So you can just type the PDF in.
Upload a real PDF.
Yeah. And then it tells you your income, total expenses, and where the money is going.
Transactional categorization. Those businesses used to be worth something.
Yeah.
People spend millions on that stuff.
Yeah, and got a really nice user interface as well. And how I did it is I use a markdown file. It is really just natural language. So you can craft, tell the language model, tell your agent how to build the app. So yeah, what Stephen was saying is really like a pro tip. You can use the voice mode and tell the AI what you want, and then at the end, generate the spec. So in my spec, I told it, give AI a role. You are a senior designer and software engineer. So what that does is, language model is have like an ocean of knowledge, and if you give it a role, it knows where to find that knowledge, like relevant knowledge quickly, and then relevant to this task. And I give it some tech spec. I explain my core feature. I just say I need a drag and drop PDF faster, and to categorize my transactions, and I need a good UI that looks like Apple, like liquid glass.
That literally is the code, right? So the code of the future is English.
And I didn't even look at any of the code it generates, and you just give me the app. I can add more features, like, oh, give me more like filters, and give me pie chart. And I want filter for categories as well. I want filters by merchant as well. And sometimes you can categorize roles. For example, this transfer is really just utilities. So I say, oh, build another page where I can change my category of some transactions.
Real data, by the way.
Oh yeah, it's my data. Yeah, see, so yeah, you can see most of my money is actually going to investment and utilities. Thanks for the cost of living, and the rest is entertainment, not really much, and transfer. So yeah. So any small problem you want to solve in your life, just try vibe coding.
Thank you.
Be good.
Okay. Demo is all good. So basically, what we're seeing is you heard from FAIC's talk is really low level to high level to kind of the API, microservices, all this cloud infrastructure to programming with data, and even the level on top of that. I mean, I created this kind of like a few months ago. Now this is like I needed another thing. Instructing versus coding, right? It's the next thing. So we're really pushing value through abstraction, right? So and the shift between what we call software 1.0, which is code, right? GitHub is the repository, the home of all code. And you can see GitHub gets their projects forked, right? And I looked up some stuff we use, and it's really in that map of GitHub. So you can look up the code base you're using in there. Versus now what we're moving to is this, Hugging Face model atlas, right? So now it's the models that are having your life, and siblings and children and all this sort of stuff. So there really is a big shift between traditional software to models now. What you saw there, that markdown file, the markdown file is human and machine readable, and that's really the key, right? To be symbiotic with the machine, you need that the way you tell it what you want has to be machine and human readable. And you see this, Sean Grove from OpenAI, he said, developers, when they first realized they could use language models to code for them, used to use that to generate the code and then check the code into source control. But then what they quickly figured out was the prompt with the business context, the business rules was the valuable thing, right? And then, so if you kept that, you can generate the code in any runtime environment you want, right? So that's a change, we're pushing left. And now once we did that, we're like, wait a minute, why am I getting the PDF to try to generate a prompt? Why don't I write all my business rules in a certain way, then generate the PDF, right? And that's so if you go full end-to-end, the business need to be putting their business rules, their specifications, their desires, their needs in a place where basically you can generate the code straight away, right? And that's the shift of where we're going. An example of that, we use Visio, we use database or ER diagramming and things like that, and it's a picture, right? But now with markdown language, you can see that picture looks like a picture when you look at it, but underneath that is code. So the key to that productivity is human and machine readability and interoperability. We heard about where do you host it? We are seeing basically, and you saw from the demo, right? I was asking these guys, all right, you're going to do this like prompt demo, prompt engineering demo, vibe coding demo, and like, do we need to deploy to AWS and this and that? They're like, no, we just host it like right there. Oh, really? So we used to have SaaS, before we got on-prem, it's even worse. We used to have one version of software for everybody. Like you just all have to use the same thing. Then we had really the cloud age, the PaaS architecture, which was you can build and deploy apps and move it around and scale it very quickly, right? So we were writing more software. And now agent host, right? You see MCP, what is MCP server, what is MCP host? All that is very confusing. So we can talk about that later on. That's like a whole nother lecture on its own. The MCP host environment is where you tell it what you want, and it will build it and host it then and there. Because why would you, or if you were Google and you run a language model, why would you then give that workload to AWS? You wouldn't. Right, so that's where it's gone. So the pace of which we are developing software with this paradigm is getting faster and faster. And this is what I coined this term software hyperinflation, right? The software you thought was worth $1 million or $10 million you put into, it's going to be worth about 10 cents. Right, and our projects that we did 5 years ago, we had to get the best data scientists in there, and more recently our interns did that work. Right, but that's actually in an exponential way, definitely what's happening. And then you can see all of those SaaS software giants or incumbents rushing to reinvent themselves now as agent companies. Right, Satya Nadella said, if you think about it, those companies are really just CRUD databases with a bunch of business logic, right? The business logic is all going to go to these agents. And then once it goes to the agents, like you don't need the backends anymore, right? And then with what do we do with context and all that sort of stuff? So that's an evolving picture. So old software will be replicated in agentic workflows, and then that will basically take over old software in the end. And that's sort of like the MCP thing, right? You need a piece of software to interface with the existing world, all the APIs, but once you've got that, you don't need APIs anymore. Then you're going agent to agent. Yeah. Right? That's the evolution. I was very much against using ChatGPT, and I've just banned everybody in our company from using it. And then the guys are coding with it, and I'm like, all right, if we don't embrace it, we're going to lose out. Except now you see this recent study, it leads to atrophy of essential cognitive skills such as critical thinking, memory, and problem solving. And everyone who's seen Wall-E, like, okay, well, we don't need to do anything. Right? So your brain, if you don't think, you need to think. You need to think, you need to create. If not, you're going to turn into that. But I don't think that's our fate. Because otherwise, if that was the case 12,000 years ago when we invented farming, we would have stopped there. Yeah. Right? There's always more, and competition at a national level, at a tribe level, doesn't stand still. Okay, so we're talking a little bit about AI builder roles. In the core of that, you've got the people, most people today, right there in OpenAI and companies like that, Anthropic building those, inventing the AI, building foundational models, world models, fine-tuning. Then you've got the big bulk of them, what used to be called the AI wrapper company, the ChatGPT wrapper company. Well, how do I use that to create business applications? And that's what we call the systems integrators of AI. Then you've got the AI adopters on top, right? And those are the companies. Most of the people, everyone here today are the AI adopters. You're looking to adopt that. And the challenge basically is what if you see that the thing that is valuable is what you know about your business, then really there's no room for people in the middle that's not part of your business, right? So I say, are you going to get an external middle layer of AI builders? I don't think so, right? The competencies, right? Building AI, building with AI. You saw that, right? Building with AI, and you saw building AI with AI. So reinforcement learning, getting the chat bot to help you write a better prompt and things like that, right? So it's very meta now. What's happening? Yeah, code that writes code, basically. That's what we're going for. And we've got a bunch of roles. Talked about roles. So if you think about you used to have the data lake over here and the app stack over there, they're converging, right? You think of this as a reference architecture. In the agentic world, this is no longer relevant, so yeah, don't pay attention to this anymore. But if you think about that, in any reference architecture, we're going to have a whole bunch of roles and people back to that. And if you go to ChatGPT, they'll write all the JDs for you, so you can hire them as long as you have your reference architecture. Fine. So we have created a new SaaS application, an AI application, and it took us about 8 months. 8 to 10 months to basically bring that to market. We recently, it's a financial advice application. We recently got about 3 practices using that. They're not paying, but they're using it, and telling us what's wrong with it. And it took kind of this role, this squad, that amount of time to build it. So the time frame to bring new products to market is condensing. And I think we didn't really fund that in the best way, so we can always do better. I'm going to show a little bit of an example of that application. And this application, if you think about it, it's basically a CRM. You can set up meetings here, and there are a lot of transcription applications out there that basically do this sort of stuff, right? It does that, it does the summarization. Copilot does that. That's not anything really that special. But the key thing is this, all right, infinite context, we don't have it. I'm not sure if it will ever come, but people do talk about that. Context, the history is really key, right? And LLMs are response biased. They always want to generate a response. So how do you check facts within a very big context, right? You need to transform text into knowledge or facts. Then you can check against those facts. So abstraction and planning is the definition of intelligence, basically. So what we're saying is large language models are fluent in language, but they're not intelligent because they can't yet abstract in a way that we can relate to. So you need to take this conversation of what I'm saying today, boil it down into 3 or 4 or 5 key ideas or facts or truths about something you know about each other. And then you need to represent that, then you can fact check that. That's what's missing in today's large language models. That's what we build out of all the research here and all the other commercial partners in our in this FAIC, right? So this representation is compute efficient. It can stay there forever, and you can fact check that, and you can derive new information off that, right? And that's where we've taken a large language model and knowledge graph to put them together. Right, and that's kind of some of the new innovations we've pioneered. What can you do with that? For example, I'll show you here. Send. I can use the microphone like sound and funny here. Yeah. What you can do is, so if you wanted to get ChatGPT or Copilot to generate something, you have to put all of the context in. Right? But that's very troublesome. Now I'm uploading all the PDFs, all the holdings, all the statements. That's less efficient. What you want is every bank was investing in a single customer view. Right? You want that to be hyper fine-grained to every single interaction. And then you want to be able to retrieve that information and then infuse that in the pipeline that you're generating, in the response you're generating, wherever you're generating that response, right? So for what we do in that example is we have a knowledge graph with all of that information. You put in a natural language prompt, we must do intent classification. What are you asking me? Right? And intent can only be followed if you have a representation that humans agree with, which is what the ontology or the tree structure is about. And then we have to search that. And what we do is we then generate code to do the query. So the query is dynamically generating code. So I talked about code that writes code. That's a crucial part of our ecosystem. And then you kind of get this rich dynamic response, and you can manipulate that. You can say, now do this with it, now do that with it. So that's some of the, to give you an example of some of the technology that is yet to be invented. And that's why David said we are at the start of the AI journey. There's lots and lots of gaps to be researched and developed. And I think that's me. So in summary, I think do new things, and everything is changing, and practice. I think practice is worthwhile. I'll end there. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Alan, once again. Questions for Alan? Nick.
I'm going to ask you with your two hats on. So thinking about the way you've structured Cognitivo, you hire the best and brightest, you're bringing in the best of academia, but you're using that in a commercial construct. How are you thinking about this as an educator? So within your role in UNSW, how are you seeing the need to change and evolve to make sure that the workforce of tomorrow is being trained in the right way? And what are the challenges you're seeing for organisations globally? And is there anything we're doing locally that's of note?
I'll give you a couple of nuggets. So the people we hire are not the best, because they're basically grads. And the reason why we hire grads is because the technologies we're working with, nobody has experience anyway. So we just need to know they can think and code. So if you hire somebody with 15 years experience right now, that's probably going to be worse, and it's just more expensive. So I think that's the first nugget. So you need to bring, it's a new caliber, and really it's all about competition, because somebody with very little experience can do better work now, right? I mean, I didn't know all that stuff. Those guys just knew it somehow. Right? So there is a little bit of that.